Feeling drained? Take a moment, this story's a warm embrace for you. What happens when the person you trust most makes your home feel like a stranger's? Join me to the end of this video, as this tale might shine a light on your own heart and relationships. Hey, listener, you're about to dive into a story where love starts sweet but sours under the weight of unspoken expectations. I'm Ethan, 26, an office coordinator, Seattle, finally getting my footing in a studio apartment I've made my own. My boyfriend, Caleb, 25, is a dreamer who quit his job to chase a startup, and he's all but moved into my place. At first, our constant togetherness felt like a dreamer's first taste of living together, but little cracks are showing, and what seemed like partnership is starting to feel lopsided. Let's step into the moment it all began to shift. I moved to Seattle 2 years ago, trading small-town life for city buzz. My studio's small, think IKEA furniture, string lights, and a view of rainy streets, but it's mine. I crunch numbers for a tech firm. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and lets me save a bit. Caleb came into my life 6 months ago, a whirlwind of charm and ambition. We met at a friend's game night, where his quick wit and bold ideas won me over. He was working retail then, but quit 3 months ago to build an app, crashing at his mom's place an hour away while he figures things out. Soon after, Caleb started staying at my place full-time. His mom's house was too far for his Seattle meetings, he said, and my apartment was central. I was thrilled waking up to him. Sharing coffee, cooking stir-fry together felt like we were playing house, our first stab at something serious. We'd work side by side, me on spreadsheets, him coding or pitching investors over Zoom. Nights were cozy, Netflix, cuddles, his head on my chest. At 26, I'd never lived with a partner, and this felt like love in high definition, messy, real, ours. But the shine started to fade. Caleb wasn't just staying over, he'd all but moved in. His clothes filled my closet, his laptop claimed half my desk. I didn't mind sharing space, but I noticed he wasn't sharing costs. My rent, $1,400 a month, came from my paycheck alone. Utilities, Wi-Fi, groceries deal. Caleb would grab snacks or the occasional pizza, but nothing substantial. At first, I let it slide. He was hustling, cash tight, and I wanted to support his dream. But then he'd talk about his savings, how not paying rent was stacking his funds. One night, over beers, he grinned. I'm never renting again. Man, I'll save enough to buy a place outright in a couple years. His words landed like a stone in my gut. Wait, you're saving for a house? I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, he said, eyes bright. Living with you's perfect, no rent, no stress. I'm banking almost everything. I nodded, but my mind churned. He was building a future, his future and my dime, while I scraped by to keep us afloat. My studio, my sanctuary, was his free ride. I'd assumed we were a team, splitting life slowed, but Caleb was coasting, his ambition fueled by my stability. The imbalance wasn't just financial, it was emotional, like I was carrying us both while he planned his solo escape. I tried to brush it off, telling myself he'd contribute once his startup took off. But the unease grew. He'd leave dishes in the sink, use my streaming accounts without asking, even borrow my car for quick meetings without chipping in for gas. Small things, but they piled up. I'd catch myself resenting his carefree vibe, coding in sweatpants while I stressed over bills. Our cozy nights started feeling like a performance, his gratitude more lip service than action. You're the best, babe, he'd say, but words didn't pay the power bill. I hadn't brought it up yet, unsure how to without sounding petty. Caleb wasn't a leech, was chasing a dream, and I loved his drive. But love didn't blind me to the math. I was subsidizing his life, and he was banking on it. At 26, I wanted a partner, not a dependent. My studio, once a haven, felt like a shared dorm where I was the only one paying rent. I needed to talk to him, but how do you call out someone you love without breaking what you've built? The question hung over me, heavier each day. Listener, Ethan's dream of living together is cracking under an uneven load, and Caleb's blind spot is only the start. Is this just a rough patch? Or a sign of deeper disconnect? Stay with Metha's stories about to face the tension of love meeting reality. Ethan's Seattle studio, once a haven, was starting to feel like a stage for an uneven partnership. At 26, an office coordinator, he'd welcomed his boyfriend Caleb, 25, into his home, thrilled by their live-in romance. But for months in, the cracks were glaring. Caleb, a startup dreamer who'd quit his job, contributed little beyond snacks while banking his savings, thanks to Ethan's rent-free hospitality. Ethan's joy at their shared life was fading, replaced by a growing resentment. Caleb's casual disregard for their imbalance was pushing Ethan to a breaking point, and silence was no longer an option. The math was brutal. Ethan's $1,400 rent, plus utilities, groceries, and Wi-Fi nearly $2,000 a month came straight from his paycheck. Caleb's contributions, a bag of chips here, a pizza there, maybe $50 a month if Ethan was lucky. Meanwhile, Caleb bragged about his growing savings, untouched by bills. "I'm up to $5,000 already," he'd say, scrolling real estate listings for houses he'd buy someday. Ethan's stomach would knot, his own savings stagnant while he bankrolled their life. The cozy nights cooking together, binge-watching shows felt less like love and more like a routine where Ethan played provider. He tried to raise the issue, keeping it light. One evening, as they washed dishes, Ethan said, "Hey, living together's been great, but maybe we could split some costs, rent or groceries." Caleb paused, sponge in hand, and laughed. "Split? Babe, I don't really live here. My stuff's in my car. I'm just crashing." Ethan blinked, stunned. "Crashing? You're here every night. Your laptop's on my desk. Your toothbrush's in my bathroom." Caleb shrugged, drawing a plate. "Yeah, but it's not official. I'm still at Mom's." Technically, the dodge was flimsy. Caleb hadn't slept at his mom's in months, yet he framed himself as a guest, asking to stay over like it was a favor. That guest act grated most. Each night, Caleb would say, "Cool if I crash again," with a grin, as if Ethan's place was a hotel. Ethan always said yes, not wanting to seem controlling, but the ritual felt performative. Caleb wasn't a visitor. He'd colonized Ethan's space, using his Wi-Fi, eating his food, leaving mugs in the sink. Yet his not really living here excuse let him sidestep responsibility while reaping the benefits. Ethan felt gently exploited, his home no longer his own, his kindness stretched thin by Caleb's selective obliviousness. The outside world started noticing. At a bar with friends, one asked, "So, you're still covering all the rent, Ethan?" The question, innocent but pointed, burned. Another friend chimed in, "Wait, Caleb's living there full-time and not paying." "Dude, that's not cool." Their words mirrored Ethan's unease, amplifying it. He mumbled, "It's temporary," but the looks they exchanged said it all. In his own apartment, Ethan was starting to feel like a doormat, his generosity taken for granted. The studio he'd scrimped to afford was now a shared space where he bore the load alone, his role reduced to landlord and lover. Ethan's heart was torn. He loved Caleb. Their early days, full of passion and shared dreams, still lingered. Caleb's hustle, his late-night coding, his big plans for his app, were part of what drew Ethan in. Supporting a partner's ambition felt right, but this wasn't support, it was enabling. Caleb's talk of buying a house a solo, no mention of us stung, hinting at a future where Ethan was a stepping stone, not a partner. The imbalance wasn't just financial, it was emotional. Caleb leaned on Ethan's stability while offering little in return, his charm masking a deeper disregard. At 26, Ethan wanted a relationship of equals, not one where he played the provider to Caleb's dreamer. But confronting Caleb risked shattering their fragile setup. What if Caleb got defensive, or worse, left? The thought of losing him hurt, but so did the status quo's savings dwindling, his home feeling less his voice drowned by Caleb's easy excuses. He tried rationalizing. Caleb was broke, chasing a dream. But the truth was sharper. Caleb was comfortable, thriving on Ethan's dime, while Ethan's needs went ignored. Nights alone, When Caleb was at meetings, Ethan stared at his studio's walls, once a symbol of independence, now a reminder of his eroded boundaries. He wasn't just paying for rent, he was paying for a relationship that left him feeling small. He needed to talk to Caleb, set terms, or end it, but fear held him back. Love made him hesitate, but resentment was winning. The longer he stayed silent, the more he endured, and the less he recognized himself. Listener, Ethan's love is buckling under Caleb's weight, and the imbalance is pushing him to a crossroads. Can he reclaim his space, or is this dynamic too broken to fix? Stay with Memphis Stories about to face the cost of love without fairness. Ethan's Seattle studio had become a battleground of love and resentment. At 26, an office coordinator, he let his boyfriend Caleb, 25, all but move in, only to realize he was bankrolling their life together. Caleb, chasing a startup dream, contributed little beyond snacks, saving for his own future, while Ethan covered rent, utilities, and groceries. Caleb's dodges claiming he was just crashing despite living there full-time left Ethan feeling used, his home no longer his own. Friends' questions and his dwindling savings pushed him to a breaking point. He couldn't keep enduring in silence. It was time to demand clarity or walk away. Alone in his apartment, Ethan took stock. Could he stay with someone who avoided commitment while reaping the benefits of his stability? Caleb's charm, his big dreams, still tugged at Ethan's heart, but love wasn't enough when it felt so one-sided. At 26, he wanted a partner, not a guest who treated his home like a free Airbnb. The imbalance financial and emotional was eroding his sense of self. He'd given Caleb space to chase his app, but at what cost? His studio, his sanctuary, felt like a shared dorm where he paid the price alone. He needed a relationship built on fairness, not sacrifice. Ethan chose a Sunday evening to confront Caleb, inviting him to talk over coffee at their kitchen table. No distractions, just truth. We need to figure this out, Ethan started, his voice calm but firm. You're here every day, living in my space, but I'm carrying all the costs. I need to know what our plan isn't just for you, but for us. Caleb shifted, his usual grin absent. I thought we were good, babe. I'm not. Like, officially moved in. Ethan cut through the dodge. Caleb, you're here every night. Your stuff's everywhere. You're saving thousands while I'm barely breaking even. Are you planning to share the load rent? Bills? Anything? Caleb hesitated, caught off guard. I mean, I'm broke right now, he said, rubbing his neck. The startup's eating everything. I figured you were cool with it since it's your place. Ethan's frustration flared, but he kept steady. It's not about being cool, it's about fairness. I love you, but this feels like I'm supporting your dream while our life together gets sidelined. What's your plan? Are we building something? Or are you just here? Caleb's silence spoke volumes, his eyes darting like he was searching for an out. Ethan laid down his boundary, clear and non-negotiable. Here's the deal, he said. Either we plan to live together for real, split rent, bills, responsibilities, like partner, sir, you go back to your mom's, like you say you are, and we date without you living here. No more crashing. I can't keep doing this halfway. Caleb's face tightened, a mix of guilt and surprise. That's a lot to process, he said finally. Can I think about it? Ethan nodded, but his heart was firm. Take your time, but I mean it. I need a partner, not a guest. The conversation ended without resolution, Caleb leaving with a quiet "I'll call you." But for Ethan, the act of speaking up was a release. For months, he'd swallowed his unease, letting Caleb's charm and dreams overshadow his own needs. Now, he'd reclaimed his voice, his space. The studio felt lighter, like he'd taken back a piece of himself. He didn't know what Caleb would choose, commitment or retreat, but Ethan was done bending. At 26, he was learning his worth, and it wasn't measured in unpaid bills or unspoken resentment. The open-endedness stung, but it was honest. Caleb might step up, splitting costs and building a real partnership, or he might walk, chasing his solo dreams. Either way, Ethan felt a quiet pride. He'd faced the fear of losing love to demand fairness, a step toward the healthy relationship he deserved. His studio, His life was his again, even if just for now. He spent the evening sketching a hobby he'd neglected, filling the first sparks of peace, whatever came next. So, listener, thanks for staying with me. Ethan's drawn his line, but Caleb's choice hangs in the air. Would you have pushed for clarity like Ethan, or waited for change? When's a time you had to stand up for your worth and love? Share bellow whim all ears. And if you're in a lopsided relationship, remember, love should lift you, not drain you. Keep listening, life's full of moments that teach us what we're owed.